Video from my November 5th, 2016 dive to Farnsworth Bank aboard the Sea Ray. This was a charter by West Coast Dive Club, and it's the first that I had been on. We were pleasantly surprised to see a female Torpedo Ray on the first dive. It's always a treat. This was near the yellow wall, as you can see sort of in the background there, the change in color from the purple hydrocoral to the yellow. She was graceful and is just one of those creatures that does not care that anyone else is around. I seem to average 1 or 2 torpedo rays every fourth or so dive on Farnsworth. Farnsworth, for some reason, is known for the torpedo rays. These are truly magnificent creatures, and thankfully they tend to swim fairly slow, so if you see one, you've got time to catch up. They also don't particularly care if you're close to them, but you have to give them a good bit of space. The second dive, my tech dive buddy X and I decided to do a scooter dive around Farnsworth Bank. X, you can see here in the video, attached a strobe to the anchor chains, that way we could find it on our way back. And it was beautiful. X had his camera mounted to his scooter, and this was one of my favorite shots of X looking like an alien with his 7,000 lumen lights. That's 7,000 lumens per light. Here you can see part of the scootering around the Pinnacle. I sped this up about 6 times in order to not bore everyone to tears. The viz dropped on the second dive, and I think part of it had to do with the currents that we faced. I haven't experienced currents like this at Farnsworth in quite a long time. The current changed depending on where you were on the Pinnacle. Here I'm at the yellow wall, but as I rounded the corner, the current would pick up, and in some cases it was so strong that with my scooter I would have to shift up into the highest gear just to make progress. Now granted, I did this as a tech dive, so I had slung 2 bailout bottles, so that way I could do deco if anything happened with my rebreather. So I wasn't exactly the most hydrodynamic, but everybody on the boat mentioned that the current seemed particularly strong on this particular trip. Still, it's Farnsworth Bank, so it's a blast. This is me scootering over the top of the Pinnacle. We're on one of the high points here that crested to about 50 or so feet. Here you can see large clusters of the purple hydrocoral that thrive in high current, high surge areas. The third dive was Pedestal Rock. This was a beautiful sight, as always. It was absolutely covered in sea fans. And here we attempted to catch lobster, although it's a day dive, so I didn't have any luck. Still, we had a few pretty cool animal encounters. Here was a tiny little moray eel that I saw inside of a crack. I just hadn't videoed any morays for a while. Here was a 2-spot octopus. I had seen a bit of a larger one at Farnsworth, but it was tucked too far back to get any good video. But this wasn't the coolest encounter I had. The coolest thing I had was, as you see right here, an eel had biting into the carcass of a lobster. I don't know if somebody had poached some lobsters and ripped their bodies off or what, but there were 2 sitting at the bottom of the hill.